Bonjour et bienvenue à la nouvelle édition du français pour les anciens étudiants d'espagnol. Aujourd'hui, on va discuter le verbe irrégulier aller et on aura besoin du cahier, bien sûr, et un stylo ou un crayon. So you will need today for our discussion with aller your notebook, a pen or a pencil. Puis, tenez la prochaine page. Et pour moi, c'est la page 33. So this is page 33. On va commencer comme toujours avec la date. So please, as always, start with the date. Pour moi, c'est le 13, 11, 16. S'il vous plaît, utilisez la date pour vous. So please use your date, whatever is appropriate for you. Okay, so we have here le verbe irrégulier aller. Okay. And aller is part of what are normally referred to as one of the big four verbs in French. It is the verb to go. And along with être, avoir, and faire, form one of the verbs that you really cannot speak French without. There's a lot of ways that you can work around a word in French, but those four verbs you really can't. Okay? Now, you may remember that the verb to go is also one of the monster verbs in Spanish. And en español, c'était le verbe ir. And you remember the verb ir, right? Looks like an IR verb ending, but it's really not. It's a verb all by itself. And it is the verb to go. And it was irregular. Voy, vas, va, vamos, vais. And it's one of the only vosotros forms in Spanish that does not have an accent. Y, vam. Vam. So we have the yo form, the tu form, the el, ella en usted form, nosotros, vosotros, and then we have the ellos, ellas en ustedes forms. Okay? And this is the verb to go in Spanish. You may also remember that in Spanish it had two main uses. And in Spanish, both of these were ir, a. So number one, we had ir, a, followed by a place, which was to go to a place. Okay, and just like we talked about when we were looking at contractions, we have a sample sentence, voy al parque. I am going to the park, and remember that a, followed by el, the definite article, contracts to form al. Then we had, for part two, we had ir, a, followed by an infinitive. Okay, and you'll remember when we first started talking about verbs that an infinitive is a basic, unconjugated form of the verb. In Spanish, they end in ar, er, and ir. Okay, and they mean to blank. So ir, a, blank, meaning to be going to do something. To be going to blank, whatever it is you're doing. I usually say to verb. So in this case, vas a escribir esta información. Información. That you are going to write this information. Okay. Bon ben. Sorry about the camera angles today. They seem to be off. All right, now let's look at this en français. Now we have en français. Et en français, nous avons le verbe aller, qui ça veut dire to go, okay, just like ir. And one of the ways to remember the verb aller is that it is pretty irregular. It looks like an ER verb, and most of the time it doesn't act like one. And the deal is that if you know a small child and they happen to play with cars, and you ask a little kid, what sound does the car make? A lot of times they'll tell you a car goes vroom, vroom, with a V sound. So most of the forms of the verb aller start with the letter V. The car goes vroom, so the letter V. So we have je, tu, il, elle, on. And because we're awesome, we can chain all of these together to indicate that they have the same form. And we have nous, vous, il pluriel et elle pluriel. Et une fois encore, if I write a bracket here, we can see that they have the same form. So like I said, these actually have forms that begin with the letter V. So je vais, tu vas, and look at that. Between the French and the Spanish, the two forms are identical. And the il, elle, on form here, you guessed it, is actually va. So if you can remember from your Spanish, we actually have a couple of forms that are identical. They are spelled the same, but they are pronounced differently. Parce qu'en français, on ne prononce pas cet S. So we don't pronounce this S in French. Okay. Then we're going to skip the nous and the vous form for a moment. We're going to go over here to the last form that starts with V, which is il and elle pluriel, which is vont. Now you may remember that your form of avoir for the il and elle form is on, O-N-T. For être, c'est sont, S-O-N-T. For faire, c'est font, F-O-N-T. And for aller, c'est vont, V-O-N-T. So they all look very similar, these four forms for the il and the elle plural. All right, now nous and vous are terrific. If this was an ER verb, we would drop the ER and then we would add what for our ending for nous. If you said ONS, then you remember how to conjugate an ER verb. Good job. Nous allons. And then for a vous form, we drop the ER, and what two letters do we add? If you said EZ, good job. Give yourself a gold star. Because this form is aller. And you can see that nous and vous work like a regular ER verb for the verb aller. They're the only ones that do, however. So, yeah, sorry about that. Okay, so en français, comment utiliser ce verbe? So we have two uses. Deux utilisations. So we have two uses. And the first one is to go to a place, just like in Spanish. So one, we have aller, à, followed by a place. To go to a place. Okay, aller, à. And if you remember from your contractions with a, this a will react with whatever comes after it. So we need to conjugate aller. Conjugate. And then for this a, we're going to look out for contractions. Now, there might not be any. And if there aren't any, good job. You don't have to write one, but you do need to look for it. So if we're going to the park, just like in our Spanish example, okay? Nous allons au parc. Why? Because a, followed by le, contracts to form o. If you don't remember that, you can go back and review our session on contractions or take a peek in your notes. Nous allons au parc. Tu vas à la bibliothèque. You go to the library. Now, if this is if this is negative, then you would put the negative where it normally goes. Now, sometimes aller, a followed by a place is not followed by a. And so, je ne vais pas chez moi. I don't need an S there. Don't know why I wrote it. Je vais pas chez moi. So I am not going home. Chez is a preposition in French that you may see in your textbook. And chez means at or to somebody's house, usually. Person's house. So all of those really fancy restaurants that say Chez Pierre, or that really great hair salon that's like, Chez Beverly, basically is just at Beverly's place, or at Pierre's place, or house. So it sounds really fancy, but it's not. All right, so numéro 2. Le deuxième manière d'utiliser ce verbe. So then we have aller, followed by an infinitive. Infinitive. Which means to be going to blank. Whatever your activity is, verb. And the deal here is that this word has to end in er, ir, or re. And if it doesn't, it's wrong. Okay? So, on va écrire les notes. We're going to write the notes. Even in English, we don't conjugate this verb. We say to blank. So, on va écrire les notes. Riley va manger de la pizza. That Riley is going to eat pizza. Okay? So whatever this next word is, it has to end in er, ir, or re. Now, because these are two verbs working next to each other, there's a couple of things you need to be aware of. One, in the negative. In the negative, we're going to make the first verb negative. We're going to leave the second one alone. So let's get a negative expression. Nous n'allons pas conduire le bus. Okay, we are not going to drive the bus. So we have the negative expression. It goes with the first verb. Now this is part of what I like to call the two-verb rule. This is not an official rule. Pardonnez-moi. It does not appear in any of your textbooks, but it is something that you're going to see over and over and over again. So we're going to add it in here, the two-verb rule. Okay? And the two-verb rule says, when two verbs are working together in a sentence, are working together in a sentence. You change verb 1. But leave verb 2 alone. Leave verb 2 alone. Okay? Here we have two verbs working together. We changed verb 1, which is aller. We did not change verb 2, which is écrire. We changed verb 1, which is aller. We did not change verb 2, which is manger. Again, we changed aller, but not conduire. Now, whatever that second verb is, if it goes into some sort of other form, again, you're going to leave it alone. We're going to see a modification of this rule. And remember, it's not an actual rule. So don't go looking for it. You're not going to find it. We're going to see a modified version of this rule when we start doing past tenses. But for the most part, the first verb changes, the second verb doesn't. That's the deal. Bon ben, ça suffit. Puis, à l'indice. So let's go to the index. And comme toujours, la date, c'est le 13, 11, 16. C'est aller. C'est un verbe irrégulier. You remember that irregular verbs do not follow a pattern. Irrégulier. Et ça, c'est 33, 34. Bon ben, merci. Au revoir.